Welcome everyone to this panel, which is based on women in space. We have present with us today, we have Barbara Imhoff, who is CEO and co-founder of Liquefire. I'll give you an opportunity
Hello.
to explain that in a second. We have Ghislaine, who is coming to us from Quanticube Technology, who is on cohort 1, based in Paris, who is the current COO and also co-founder. We are delighted to also invite Skevi from Cyprus, from GeoFem, who is also co-founder of her startup, and Clara, who is CEO of Société Générale, based also in Paris. Before I start, I'd like to just comment that we have actually a very nice balance panel in the very nice balance panel here today. We have two who've come from the academic PhD environment and gone on to set their own companies. Then we have two other members who've come from sales backgrounds and moved into the digital space and brought it forward. So really looking forward to the discussion today. So if I could ask Barbara, if you could start off and just give us an idea of your current role in Liquefire, just to give an introduction to who you are and what you're currently doing.
Good morning. Thank you to the IoT Tribe for the invitation. Yes, my name is Barbara Imhoff. I'm based in Vienna, Austria, and at the same time in Bremen, Germany. And I'm the co-managing director and co-founder of Liquefire. So Liquefire Systems Group, as the name says, it's a systems group. So it comprises a team of space engineers, scientists, and architects and designers. And we mainly work in the area of human space exploration, but we also venture out into neighboring areas of robotics, but also work with biological systems and integrating this into, I would say, architectural structures. So my background is in architecture, and I've been always engaged or fascinated with the thought of how will we live in the future and how the future will look like. So I started, before I set up the company, I started to see, okay, where can we live in 50, 100 years? How will it look like? What would be the, how will the habitats be looking like? And then when you think further and further, you cannot avoid of imagining to live on Moon and on Mars. And the company has been co-founded with Susmita Mohanty. She's a space entrepreneur from India, and also with Waltraud Hoheneder, fellow architect and designer. So until recently, it was a 3-women-led company. And it's true what Tanya said. It takes 10 years to become an overnight success. So yes, it took some time, but we're still I think the only European space architecture firm out there.
Thanks very much, Barbara. And I'll come back to you to bring in that space architecture, because I think it's a very unique profile, or let's say profession. Over to you, Skevi. Would you give a brief overview to GeoFem and your role as co-founder?
Yes, thank you very much. My name is Skevi Pertikou. We're based in Cyprus. I'm the co-founder of GeoFem. GeoFem is quite unique in the respect that it specializes in both civil engineering and satellite remote sensing, specifically Earth observation, in order to provide monitoring and management of infrastructure assets. So my background is in civil engineering. That's how I started. And I grew up in an earthquake zone country, Cyprus. So I always had an appreciation of the importance of living in a safe environment and a working environment. And that inspired me in following civil engineering, but later on doing a PhD in satellite remote sensing and actually using space technologies for different applications in order to improve our environment, make it safe, and especially in these times where the climate change results in natural disasters. So we are able to use satellite remote sensing in order to assess the condition of infrastructure in our environment to make sure that we live in a safe environment.
Thanks very much. Yeah.
That's what we do. Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin. I think, as I mentioned, both you and Barbara both have an academic background in transitioning into the world of business and startups. I think you failed to mention that you also were the engineer for the sewage system in Nicosia, which is, I think, if any of the fans of Game of Thrones, if you reference to Tyrion Lannister, it's one of the most important jobs in the city because when it goes wrong, everyone complains, but when it goes well, no one notices. So certainly an interesting background. Clara, over to you. So I mentioned that we have a more financial spin, and happens that you're both in Paris, so maybe it reflects more the city than the sector. But could you just give us an overview of your role in Société Générale? I know you have a big role to do with compliance and risk management, but you've come actually from a background which is more strategic to reach that part.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. Nice to be here with you today, and thank you for inviting me. So yes, indeed, I have 15 years of experience in banking sector, mainly in very strategic and transversal transformation project, complex situation to manage. Currently, it's been quasi 3 years that I'm CEO for Europe and Russia, so covering mainly risk management, compliance aspects all over our entities in Europe and Russia. And we are also, of course, following everything that is I would say new initiatives that may help very classic and standard context and environment as a big structure as a bank. So this is also why I am here today to try to listen and to see how are you in fact growing and trying to serve, because this is one of my I would say main characteristics when I look into a project is how we are going to serve as a bank, but also as an enterprise, our clients and our partners. So here, and with a lot of humility, because I am completely, I would say, discovering the
space and digital sector,
and space and digital. Yes.
So I think what first thing to say, you obviously have a very small job. It's not difficult at all, having to manage all that risk. But I think as well, we probably will be able to draw some parallels between the financial markets as well as the STEM and space sector. I'm sure we can find definitely some parallels there in that field. And speaking of financial, over to Ghislaine. So you're also now, your company QuantCube works very much within the financial sector, but you started as a psychotherapist working with children. Then you went on to work for luxury brands such as Cartier and Bulgari, and then you were co-founding an AI startup. So please give us a bit of background of QuantCube and kind of how did you make that jump? It's an extremely interesting jump as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a co-founder and COO of QuantCube Technology. So we are a startup specialized in economic intelligence, mainly utilizing alternative data and AI. So we are at the frontier of fintech because we provide financial services mainly to financial institutions. At the frontier also of the space tech, because we utilize a lot of space data and we value this data in order to generate and build our product. And also at the frontier of the AI, because it's really our main know-how and expertise within the company. Today, the role I have within the company is really a business role. I'm leading the growth strategy of QuantCube today, growth in terms of team management and recruitment, also leading the internationalization strategy today by opening our offices in different regions of the world, and also leading the product strategy. And as you said, of course, I have I had previously different lives, I would say in a certain sense, by starting before as a psychotherapist, afterwards moving to strategic planning and marketing within the luxury industry, and after that, ending up co-founding an AI startup. The thing actually that was really drawing this path for me is that I've grown up within a family of entrepreneurs and a family of business. So I was initiated since very, very little to the business world and to a certain extent what it takes to be an entrepreneur. I had a very important role model within my family. It was my mom. She was raising her kids at the same time running a business where she was actually growing her company and dealing with the 100% male customer base. So this shows you a little bit that it's something that definitely shaped my personality and my taste for business and for building businesses with a certain purpose, I would say. So that's why I think it was a natural path for me as a certain way, ending up building up, co-founding this startup. And I'm very happy to be part of this panel today because when I see around me in the space tech industry, we have a lot of challenges today. We are dealing with the challenge of the future of cybersecurity, the future of environment, the future of how we are going to live and raise our kids. I think definitely that over there, we cannot leave all these issues and challenges to only men. Women need to take a role and needs to be there as well, and need to be part of the decision making.
Thanks a lot, Ghislaine. And you touched on a couple of topics that we want to tease out in the next say 10 minutes. I think one of the topics I want to pull out is actually from you, Barbara, which is the transition. So you went from a PhD in architecture to doing a master in space to becoming a space architect. So could you just give us a bit of background into, first of all, what is a space architect? Because I know you explained a bit of it earlier, but to give everyone an idea of your emerging profession, shall we say. And the second part is to really kind of what drove you to want to enter into this world of space from architecture?
Yes, so a space architect, I would say, does the same thing as a non-space, a terrestrial architect, because wherever we live, wherever humans live, we need the same things. We need a suitable environment for us to live in, oxygen and water and so on. And so I think it's really about designing this environment or habitats. Currently, just to give you an example, Liquifer is designing together with a big consortium and with the International Space Station partners the interior configuration of the International Habitat Module for the next lunar orbiting space station gateway. And but we also designed and built simulators, so test beds for habitats, deployable habitats for training astronauts for future missions on the moon and on Mars. So this is, I would say, these are two examples of what space architects do. But I also have to say, we have to work in very close collaboration with space engineers and scientists. So the one profession is never enough with these very highly complex projects which we are faced with in space or building for humans in space. And I think what you've been describing before, this transition from academic, from studying architecture and maybe doing a PhD into the business field, I think it wasn't as step by step as Martin mentioned. It was rather a lot of parallel things because I had another architecture art enterprise before I went into space architecture. But I think the deciding factor, or the factor that made me there together with Susmita Mohanty to create in 2003 a space architecture company was really my Master of Space Studies at the International Space University. So this was something where we thought then, okay, we have a basis, we have a network, and we dare to start this company, although it's unheard of, or it was unheard of at that time in Europe.
Thank you very much, Barbara. And I think obviously all of us who've lived in small apartments, especially probably our Asian guests, will know that maybe we can benefit as well from your activities in the interior design of small capsules for our apartments that we have to live in today, especially in the kitchen. So I'd like to kind of come back as well. Sorry, one. Yes.
Yes, there is always, it's always the same. We humans need the same thing. We need it in space, we need it on Earth. And I think these specialist systems of self-sufficiency and recovering water and air and recycling material, I think these are extremely important in space, or they're, how I said, they are a must. And I think this is what we can take back, these technologies and experiences we can take back on terrestrial grounds.
So going back to what Ghislaine mentioned about the role models and using her mother as a prime example of trying to grow a company and deal with those challenges. Skevi, did you have anyone particularly that you were looking towards when you were either in your academic background or in the current role you have, which is leading a digital startup? Do you have any particular role models that you look to, and can you explain to me why they are particularly important to you as a role model?
Yes. I remember in my academic studies, a role model I had was a professor at the university at my time, because I was studying civil engineering, which was a male-dominated environment. And one of the head of the department, actually, a great professor, was a woman, and she was really strong, really successful in her career, well respected. And that made me think that being a woman is not a barrier, of course, and it's you can achieve anything you like. So I grew up in that way anyway, with my mother and being a strong woman and everything. But at the university, my academic, like seeing a woman, full professor, very successful, well respected in a male environment, that gave me confidence, and it became a role model for me to continue my career, and without thinking any barriers at all.
Certainly, because visibility, you have to see it happening to know that you can do it as well. And I think that kind of brings us into some of the statistics that we have, which is looking at who's in charge of the space agencies. So to probably name and shame a bit, ESA only has 9% of women in leadership roles. That's marginally better in the German Space Agency, which has 19%, but we're still behind Canada, which has 33%. And without going into the details of why that happened, because we also have similar challenges in STEM, especially in engineering, and the numbers of women in the space sector at the moment is around working in space sector is around 20%, which is very similar to what we're seeing in terms of graduates and postgraduates coming out of engineering backgrounds. So I think the open question to all, and maybe starting with you, Clara, is what needs to be done to kind of tackle that? We've spoken today already a bit about visibility and about that need to that interest and that want to go and enter into this market, the space market, but also be able to bring yourself for that transition. But Clara, do you have any recommendations for what we can do to change women in management positions in space and also the participation in it? And of course, I know you're not from space, but it's more a general question about how we bring more in, which also may apply to the financial sector as well.
Yeah, because financial sector is indeed, I would say, not the most the sector where we have the most famous example of women having the highest positions. I would say that. We as a woman is not easy. We are not the ones, I would say, that always have the priorities on that highest position. However, I think and this comes also to role models that we have as a woman, is from the moment that we continue to show that we are fighters, we are skilled, we are being able to have enough emotional intelligence to be able to solve some very concrete, complex situation that maybe some others would not be in, I would say, in the position to do. I think it is by our concrete actions that we are able to achieve this kind of I would say higher position and higher stakes. And it's not just a question of a position; it's also a question of personal achievement.
Thank you very much, Clara. And final word to anyone else. Would anyone else like to jump in on that? What were your recommendations for the people who design policy, or the people who kind of are already in leadership roles, be they male or female, to help make the change? Barbara.
Yes, I'd like to add that it's, I mean, I would see, Skevi told this lovely story of role models. I think these are very important. So this kind of panel is important in that sense, because you can see all these people, all these women who have achieved all these different kinds of things. But I think it's also important to look for mentors. I've been mentored, I have to say, by men. There was no, and only one woman, I think, throughout my life. But I think this is important to take, to take the support and the help, and to take advice. Also important are networks, really trying to, become part of networks, engage yourself in networks. And one other thing is sit at the table. It's an important thing, because, when you come to, just a quick example, when you come into a conference room or so, and then there's, sometimes the table is not big enough to, have a space for everybody. So most times we as women, we tend to sit then in the second row. No, don't do that. Sit, in the middle, and at the table. So it's a synonym of many situations, and I really like that picture. And another thing, when it comes, because Brennan, you said I think it's only 9% at ESA of top jobs
of leadership
jobs held by females. I think the other thing is that these top jobs, they're very time consuming, they're very exhausting, and that is the case for men and for women. And but I think we also have to think of different models of how to to be able to fulfill these roles of these leadership jobs. Maybe we can share these leadership jobs, so that it's not always about making time for 16 hours a day, 7 days a week, to fulfill these roles, but also to share, and then have 8 hours a day to be in these positions and do a good job jointly. So I think these would be my recommendations for gender-based world.
Thank you very much, Barbara. We've run out of time, unfortunately. As always, these discussions, you think you have much more time. Ghislaine or Skevi, do you want to add anything in before we finish up?
I would like just to say that also it's a change of culture, and that has to start from young age. And I know ESA has initiatives for that, educating young kids at school to change this culture from young age, in order to be able to change that in the future.
Thank you very much, Skevi.
And I wanted to say something. You shared some figures related to ESA earlier. Some figures are also existing in the tech space related to female entrepreneurs. I would say 10% of fintech or startups here in France are you have only 10% of them led and co-founded by female entrepreneurs, which is really little. 3% of the whole worldwide VC funding went actually only to women entrepreneurs, which is very, very little, 3%. So I think the first thing to do is to try to change things, but in the first place, internally, For instance, in my position, I try to change this type of culture within QuantCube, where I'm very happy to have really a 50% balance between male and female leads projects, takes initiatives and take decisions, which is really important. And I would say the second thing is also when you are a female entrepreneur is that you need to forget about all these figures and statistics and just to dare and go for it and fight for your business, for your ambition and for your ideas. And this is at the end of the day will really be worth it.
Thank you very much, everyone. So to summarize, just in 2 phrases, sit at the table and fight for it. So thank you both very, very much. Sorry, not thank you both, thank you all very, very much. And I'll pass over to my colleague now, Joao, who will be leading on the startup pitches. So we've got 11 startup pitches to begin with now, so a lot of time pressure. Should be very exciting, but thank you all very much for participating today. So.